So, hey everybody, and thank you so much for attending the Farmers Pick Investor webinar. My name is Robin Holt, and I'm here from Birchal, effectively representing the Birchal team. And I really just want to say, guys, it's been magnificent to get to know you and really get to know this impressive business that you've built up so far and what you've been able to achieve in such a short period of time. The structure for this webinar is really just to run through a bit of a presentation that these guys have already started sharing. And then once we've gone through that presentation, which will give a lot more context into the business itself and what it's actually raising funds for at this point in time, you'll then be able to ask any question you'd like. And I'd really love to see everybody use the Q&A function and that box as much as possible so we can answer your questions as they come through. And then we're going to be able to use all the time that we've got following this presentation to cover off any of those questions that are asked by you. Josh and Josh, maybe I'll quickly throw over to you guys to introduce yourselves before we get started on this webinar.
Thanks so much, Robin. Just confirm, are you able to see our screen?
Yes, we are able to see your screen. Are you able to share it in full screen mode so we don't have anything around the side? Just in present.
Sorry, everyone. We had a last-minute computer switch.
All good.
We'll try and work on that one. Well,
no problem at all. We can see it very easily, so that's not a problem.
Okay, that's the main thing. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming to the Investor webinar for Farmers Pick. We're really excited to have you here and to finally be cracking into it after a few little technical glitches. From that though, I did see a few customers jump online, so a big shout out to you guys that are online. We know we wouldn't be here without you, so just really appreciative that you're online. Right now we're sitting in the warehouse. We've found the quietest spot here, so apologies if there's any sort of background noise that you can hear. We have forklifts, trucks, and some machinery running. So yeah, our team's in full swing today. We've got about 600 orders that'll be heading out to homes this evening. So apologies for any background noise. We did ask them to turn Kylie Minogue off just before. So I guess a little bit about myself, and then Josh will sort of jump into it as well. So me personally and professionally, I studied a business degree with a specialisation in economics and finance. From here, I worked at a rapid scale startup where I saw the team grow from 20 to 140 in under a year. I moved on then to Xero, where I ran a small hit team, I like to call it, in sales operations. And there we serviced, with three of us, we serviced over 100 salespeople and indirectly touched over 1 million customers on a regular basis and had a real impact on their experience and their journey with the product. To make this possible, what I sort of learned through this experience was just the requirement to leverage technology, automation, and just being generally really effective in what you do and how critical that was on a day-to-day. From here, I then moved into more of a go-to-market function. So here I worked more closely, again with sales, but also marketing, PR, and comms to execute on major product releases where we were looking to acquire customers en masse and at serious speed as well. So with that, I'll pass off to the other Josh.
Hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. So I'm Josh Brooks-Duncan, and I studied at MIT doing a business and supply chain degree, which is where Josh and I actually met. I then went on to work in major FMCG and retail groups in their supply chain functions. From this, I developed an understanding of contract negotiation, procurement, business operations, budget management, and implementing sustainable and economical supply chains. And Josh and I are both equally determined to combat this mission and to end food waste in Australia. And when we were first founding the business, we found that our two skill sets were really complementary. Whilst we know that we need to create a class-leading brand and exceptional customer experience, we also know the logistics and operational efficiencies underpin everything in our business and have been a focus since day one. So for the next 15 minutes or so, we'd like to take you through a little bit more about the problem, the solution that we've put in place, and some key figures of our business. Following this, we welcome any questions you might have. So Josh, I'll hand you over to the problem.
The problem besides the technology right now. Yeah, so let's take it from the top. What is the challenge that we're all facing here? To start, around 30% of produce never leaves the farm. In a previous life, we didn't know the extent of this wastage. We didn't know the extent of this issue. So what's worse about this challenge is that the produce is fresh, it's nutritious, it's edible, and it's really good stuff. And it's discarded along the journey and left on farms almost entirely due to this beauty standard that's been effectively worked up artificially over the past decades by supermarkets and major chains to sort of work into their processes in the way that they operate. So although it seems like a harmless thing to sort of define this beauty standard, the impact of this standard has become devastating, and we're only really just starting to understand the impact of this. Food waste creates more emissions than oil extraction, plastic production, and aviation combined, which is just mind-blowing. It's about 8% of global greenhouse gases. On top of this, it costs our country, or it costs Australia, $36.6 billion per annum, and it costs households $2,500 per annum as well, which is like, it's some serious cash. You multiply that by over 10 million households and you get it. Not to mention the squandered resources along the way, like, you know, the amount of water, fertilizer, seed, and land that goes into agriculture and food production is enormous. So I guess, yeah, looking into, I guess, our solution and sort of what we worked up once we sort of really felt that we understood this problem. So with these challenges in mind, we created Farmers Pick. Farmers Pick is a company that creates a sustainable and consistent channel for farmers to sell their otherwise rejected produce, the stuff that gets knocked back by supermarkets because of the way it looked. To add some colour to the scale of the challenge that we're all facing, we currently source mushrooms from one farm. We currently service over 5,000 customers and 5,000 subscribers, but every single week, this one farm discards enough ugly mushrooms for us to be able to supply 60,000 subscribers. It's a lot of mushrooms. It's a lot. It's a lot of mushrooms. So this 1.7 million tons of produce that never leaves the farm is the challenge, but it is also, we see it as the opportunity. It gives us ample supply for us to grow into the future. But we have our work cut out for us. It's a huge mountain to climb. Over the sort of other thing that we're leveraging as a part of our solution is just harnessing the modern benefits of technology. Believe it or not, given the start of today, over the past decade, technology's come a long way. We've harnessed it at every turn, and we sit here currently with no legacy constraints. We've built our tech stack on exclusively best-in-class platforms, and it's ready to deal with the scale that we aspire to. Finally, we understand the importance of logistics in our business. We handle a lot of food. We handle a huge quantity of food and product, but I'll let Josh sort of touch on this one shortly, because that's more his area.
Yeah. So as you can see, like the box in the middle, like the outcome is our Farmers Pick box. And the solution that we put in place meant, you know, from a customer and environmental perspective, they're making a real world tangible impact on food waste in Australia with a small shift in buying behaviour. The solution supports Australian farmers, and this was a key area for us. We didn't want to develop a product or a supply chain which at the crux of it did not help farmers or address the problem. We worked in conjunction with them from day one, and as we've scaled, both parties have now seen the benefits of these arrangements, and we can attest to that as we see more now. As we can see now, more farms approaching us, and that includes some of the biggest growers in the country. And finally, from our customer perspective, in this time of inflationary pressure, it's a win for our customers as they get farm fresh produce delivered at a reduced cost to the major chains.
So with the sort of the challenge, the problem, and sort of part of our solution, it's been really interesting for us to sort of sit back and take a second to reflect on the journey so far. So far, where have we come from? Well, we've taken every single chance to raise awareness for food waste as a national challenge. We're featured on Channel 7, in The Age, The Guardian, ABC, Good Weekend, and on a few different radio stations. Which is really that's really important for us to raise the awareness for this and the understanding of the challenge, because we need every single Australian on board for this. We've sold over 60,000 boxes. We've found a home for over 600,000 kilos of produce that otherwise would have been left on the farm or gone to waste. We've grown rapidly from 90 customers in June last year to 5,219 when I checked this morning. We have over 50 farmers on board and excited and ready to supply us with more. We already delivered to Sydney, we already delivered to Melbourne, and we have great coverage across New South Wales and Victoria regional areas. We have a settled team of over 35 from warehouse to customer support and marketing. And we've just moved into our purpose-built food grade facility with plenty of fridge space to grow and house all the little ugly veggies.
Yeah, it's funny, hearing that list. It made me have a little bit of a reflection prior to the call, but it doesn't feel that long ago that Josh and I were packing our first boxes in his carport at 5 in the morning.
It was raining as well.
It was raining, and then going to our full-time jobs. But I look at the month just gone, which was a massive month for us. And what we did is we completed 2 trade shows, one in Melbourne and one in Sydney. We moved warehouse into the 22,000 square metre facility that we're currently sitting in. We put on 1,800 customers in the month. That was new customers. We did a farm visit in Queensland, and we delivered 8,145 boxes across Victoria and New South Wales. So it was a monster month for us. But yeah, that journey that we've been on, don't know if the first day I would have thought that's where we'd be a year or 2 later. But a key element for us is our supply chain, and the monster month we had that stressed everything, but it meant our supply chain was designed to be able to deal with it. So we've built it to be flexible and also ensure that we're delivering the freshest products possible. Now, as you can see on the charts here, we run a FIFO, or a first in, first out model, with our stock rarely sitting around for more than 2 days. This compares to the models below, which have additional storage steps as well as transport legs. Now, a key reason that we can do this and achieve this is our subscription model and direct delivery from farm. We have visibility on actual order numbers as the subscriptions renew prior to the delivery date. And then rather than needing to run demand forecasting systems to predict stock levels, we eliminate margins for error and therefore wasted product. We've built our supply chain to be nimble, adaptable, and robust. But as well, we've built it to scale. We have runway at the start with our farm partners. We've got runway in our packing capacity in our current warehouse. And we've got runway with one of the largest last mile delivery partners, in which we're in the final stages of signing a national deal with. Now, what does that translate into revenue? So in December 2020, we turned $40,000, and we had, in the first half, we turned $40,000 and we had 156 customers. In June 2020, we turned 1.748 million and we had 4,768 customers. And as Josh mentioned this morning, it's now 5,219. From this chart, we can see there's an amazing show of support for our mission and Aussie farmers, of our mission and Aussie farmers, as our customers feel they're having a tangible impact with every box. If we turn to the profit component in the first 3 halves, we lost money due to ongoing investment in the business. Josh and I bootstrapped this up until now, and we sustained these losses because we believed in the mission and we were spending for future growth. In the latest half, we can see a payback as this is the first half that we've turned profit. As we thought and planned on, as we got bigger, the price of produce got a little bit better. The price of freight got a little bit better. Actually, most things in terms of price got a little bit better.
A little bit.
And we expect to see this continue. So what does that mean for our future?
It means we're ready for 4x our current customer base. We believe with our supply chain, with our delivery partner, and with our facility, we could easily supply and house over 20,000 active subscribers. With the funding behind us, we intend to double down on food waste awareness. We're going to move this market, and we're going to change the perception that Australians have about what is fundamentally an outdated food system. As I sort of mentioned before, we know that operational efficiency is going to be at the absolute core of this business as well. Our focus will remain in this area, and we intend to invest heavily in machinery and various elements of automation. A simple example is the machine up on the top left there in the middle. So that's called a box erector, if you haven't ever seen one. Currently, we employ someone almost full time to fold boxes and tape boxes. I've folded a lot of boxes along the journey, and it's just not a job you want to do day in, day out. So it's safe to say that, the payback on machines like this, and there's multiple that we're sort of looking into, and there's 3 or 4 that we have on order right now, are simply extraordinary.
And the last point there is that we want to grow the team. So we're looking at getting on board some really key roles for us. So an operations manager to really drive the efficiencies in our warehouse. Looking at bringing our marketing in-house. Looking at getting some truck drivers on as well. And also head of customer support. So there's some really key roles that we're looking at bringing on over the next 12 to 18 months. But fundamentally, we know that we need to continue to smash the basics. And the first point there, high quality, perfectly imperfect harvest boxes. So every box that we send out, we know needs to be the best box that we can absolutely put together. And we're building our team to deliver that, putting processes and systems in place to ensure that is the case. The middle point there, exceptional customer service. So we need to build a leading brand. And as part of that, we need to have really good customer service and a customer experience, and also provide them with a greater sense past just having a veggie box delivered, involving them in the journey and really bringing them on it with this mission.
I mean, I think we sit here very conscious that ultimately fruit and vegetables is a highly homogenous product. There's something that we have to do above and beyond just giving someone a box of vegetables, and the way that we're making people feel like they are part of the solution. They are getting on board with the mission that we're going to achieve, and part of that customer experience. It's not only tech, but it's also the feeling of belonging in the community, and growing together.
And then I think the final point there is probably the most important for me, because this is the crux, what we are doing. And that's deepening our partnership with farmers. We're here to support farmers, work with farmers. And it's going to be a key focus that Josh and I want to continue with over the next foreseeable future, is really working on those partnerships and making sure that we are doing what our mission is. All right, I think that was all we had for our presentation, and we welcome any questions now, and we'll answer any questions.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much, guys. And really impressive what you've built up in such a short period of time. I can imagine putting together those boxes at 5 a.m. and then going to work was not fun at all. I definitely remember some of the days of running a small e-commerce business and feeling like I worked in a warehouse in the evenings, from effectively doing fulfillment and then going to work. It's quite full on. So yeah, I'm sure you're very, very glad you're in the position you are in now. Some of the questions we've had here, and it's really great to see these questions coming through. So thank you very much for those who have asked questions already. Please do use that Q&A function if you can't see that your question has been asked. And the first one here from Iona is asking if 30% of the 30% that doesn't leave the farm, what percent of this is still a saleable product? And you've had another question around this, but yeah, I think this would be really interesting to dig into. And I'm sure you've learned so much about this as you've built and grown the business, and perhaps this changes from time to time.
So I guess, yeah, the product that we get in, so I guess there's the 30% that's left on farm, and there is an element of that that's not consumable for humans. It is, but you know, of the stuff that does get to us, it's obviously all fresh, and sort of the rate that we use what we receive is very, very close to 100. But yeah, I think on farms, you know, they do have ways of kind of getting around some of that, you know, the really degraded or, you know, stuff that's been damaged by birds like severely, or hail is a big problem with some of your orchard lines. So, you know, there's pig farmers always put their hand up for any free feed. I mean, ultimately, sometimes it does get plowed back in purely as a sort of way of managing it. But of what we bring into the warehouse and what we land from our growers that they deem edible, like our personal wastage is sort of under 1% or 2%.
Yeah, fantastic. And I can see a couple of questions here just that I want to address, of people saying they might need to drop out, or people saying they missed the start. Everybody who's registered and is in attendance here, but then also registrations who haven't been able to attend or may have dropped off already, the session is being recorded and it will be sent around to everyone. So you can absolutely watch it in your own time. If you do need to drop off, that's not an issue. And yeah, that's as I probably expected your answer to be, Josh, with regards to produce. And just in that theme, there's another question here around what your plan is for food that's not even good enough to pack in your box. What's the waste ratio in-house, if you do have a ratio in-house, and what carbon emission, what's your sort of carbon emission of your operation now, and what's your aim for this to be in the next financial year?
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So we've actually just placed an order for a dehydrating machine to deal with our in-house waste, and we don't waste much, and most of our waste is actually cauliflower leaves because we do trim them before they go in the box. So what this machine does is it will dehydrate the product overnight and essentially creates really nutrient-rich soil or fertilizer that we can then send back to our farming partners for them to use. So really focusing on a full circle model to deal with our organic waste there. Yeah, fantastic. And a question here which has been upvoted the most times is around if there are options for reusable boxes, containers to deliver and have the customers return. In thinking about you guys and the machine that you're looking to buy, I can imagine that that would be perfect for a certain kind of box. So I can imagine that you're probably thinking of this in alignment with how easy it will be to efficiently make this work. But over to you guys in terms of, for sustainability and cost cutting, how would that work internally, and are you thinking of doing that? Yeah, so in terms of the reusability of our boxes, we have tried this and we haven't really landed on a solution for that yet. And the problem, and one of the reasons why we haven't landed on it is because a lot of that reusable material is really bad for the environment. Like polystyrene and plastics. We use a cardboard box, which is fully recyclable, and it's got an element of recyclable content in it as well. And that's at the moment what we found to be the most economic and socially sustainable solution. Yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. And Wendy here has asked what your cash what's your churn rate, and what's your cash burn rate in the last 12 months as a business? Okay, churn rate. Yeah, so churn rate, we operate a subscription business. Churn is
on the same level as acquisition. If we're getting them in the door and we're not keeping them, then there's almost no point. But so so our churn rate on a monthly basis at about 12 months ago was around the 15 to 16% mark. We've actively been trying to address that because we just see it as like just business critical in terms of growth, because the sustainability of adding enough customers to cover your churn rate and continue to grow is just not there. So as we've worked on that, in the past 2 months, we've seen around about 11.5 to 12%. So it's come off fairly significantly from 12 months ago. And we attribute that not only, we're starting to get, we believe, better product and fresher product, which is really critical. I mean, it's a fruit and veggie box. You need fresh fruit and veggie. But the sort of other part of that is we have an in-house chef who creates a recipe every single week that is accompanied with the box. And that just means that when customers get their box, it arrives on their doorstep and they look at it and they're like, that's a lot of veggies, what do I do with it? They've at least got one thing that they can start with. So there's a few sort of initiatives like that, and it'll continue to be a laser focus for us pretty much indefinitely, because it will always be.
Of course. And sorry, Josh, carry on.
I was just going to address the second part of that in terms of cash burn. So we're now at a position over the last 12 months where the funds that we lost in the first half, we've managed to recover, and we pretty much netted out for the year.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so another question that's linked to that one around your churn rate of subscribers. Somebody else asked, what do you think the main reason is for this, and why do some of these people stop subscribing? Like, what are the drivers really behind people ending their subscription?
So I think the first thing to address is that we don't offer a one-off box. We believe that the consumption of our product needs to be embedded in a lifestyle, and embedded into the routine of our customers. So our highest churn rate is the first week, and we probably attribute a lot of that to people just wanting to try it once. Maybe it's not for them. We can kind of live with that. But there's so many reasons why people cancel food subscriptions.
A lot of them are circumstantial or personal reasons. So I know we see a lot of people who are going away on holiday, and in most cases they do return as customers when they get back, or they move states. So a lot of it is personal reasons to why people change or move on from that subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting question here around who are your potential threats in the business in this space, supermarkets or Amazon, etc. I'm sure you can talk about that in a lot of detail.
Yeah, so we always debate the competition from supermarkets. We sort of, like, from our perspective, we see them as having a fundamental interest in selling traditionally premium product. It attracts greater revenue, and probably maybe marginally better profits. I'm not sure. But so I guess for them to move sort of into this space, which they do somewhat tokenistically, is probably not beneficial for their sort of revenue line. So I think, although they probably want to do more, I hope they want to do more, there is sort of prohibitive factors there for supermarkets going gung-ho at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have anything else to add to that, Josh?
No, I think that's probably, some of our other competitors are fruit and veg delivery, which is becoming quite normalized in Australia now, which is really good to see. But I think we've carved out a niche in that market here, and as Josh said before, fruit and veg is a homogenous product, but we're really ensuring that we're bringing our customers along on our mission to end this farm waste.
Yeah, awesome. And you've already had a couple of questions around your expansion plans, and really when you're looking to expands to WA. Tony says you absolutely need it there, and really need to be in WA. So maybe you can talk about your expansion plans. What you've achieved in Victoria is really significant, and I'm sure you're super excited to be expanding into other states very soon.
Yeah, so we've got expansion plans lined up, and a key part of our logistics contract that we're almost at the point of signing now is to be able to facilitate delivery to other states. And that's we haven't pushed massively on geographic expansion because we've been getting a really good response and high volumes through from our current service area. So we're just managing our growth as well, because we don't want to grow way too quick that we can't, handle it. It's got to be sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question here around effectively, Renee here has asked how much additional income do farmers receive from Farmers Pick, which is really interesting to know. What margin of profits are channeled through to farmers themselves?
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting point and an interesting question, and something that we did discuss with a lot of our farms. Like, for example, some of the product that we buy would never have been sold. It goes into the bin. So we pay a price which is less than the premium price, but it increases the farmer's revenue across the board. Now, their input costs to grow that product, they don't change. So the recovery of revenue for them really does help their bottom line.
Yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. And there's a question here which I always knew was going to come through: is what's the difference between Farmers Pick and Good and Fugly, and why should I invest in Farmers Pick?
Yep. So look, I guess it's the stage of growth and the stage that the business is at. From as far as we understand, we started almost exactly the same time, about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And as it stands, with the information that we have, we're 3 times bigger and already cover all of Victoria and a fair chunk of New South Wales as well as Sydney. That were the 2 main points.
That's main.
So I think the other one is also sort of the stage where we're at in terms of our next stage. Like, what is the next stage for us? As I sort of said earlier, our warehouse and our facility and our supply chain is ready for 4x. We're sitting here with over 5,000 customers, but we're ready to take on 20 tomorrow, but very imminently. And I kind of test to Good and Fugly's current situation and their sort of warehouse situation. But I know that's where we stand.
Yeah, great. Yeah, fantastic. There's a question here from Josh Ball, who I think I've converted this individual as an attendee. So apologies. Actually, there's 2. I can see below here. Apologies to who's asking this question, but I'm not too sure exactly who's doing it. Have you thought about how to keep your supply chain as environmentally friendly as possible as you expand to more of Australia? I'm sure it's on your mind, because that is rooted in your business and your whole business model.
Yeah, no, it definitely is in our mind. And for us, that really comes down to reduced freight miles and storage of products. So being able to source direct from farms straight to us, sits in our warehouse for a small amount of time. It means we can operate with a smaller warehouse, which means less refrigeration, which is all environmentally beneficial. We don't see ourselves having to set up having massive DCs similar to the major chains that use a lot of energy and land and water and whatnot.
I think a good example of our sort of current situation, like, we're trying to absolutely minimize, electricity usage internally in the warehouse, but, also minimize mileage. Like, we have 3 fridges, but we're only running 2 because that's all we need. The 3rd fridge is currently extra storage, but
got it.
So it's just the mentality from the outset. We're like, conserve energy where possible, minimize mileage, minimize our impact as we look for positive impact.
Yeah, fantastic. And the second question from Josh was, what about your cardboard boxes that are flattened and returned to you? Your cardboard is high quality, so it should last a few rounds in terms of your thinking off the back of the other question that was asked before.
Yeah, no, so the cardboard should last a few rounds. It does lose a little bit of integrity once it goes into a refrigerated environment. The one thing that we probably haven't quite worked out is making sure, from a hygiene perspective, making sure that any return boxes haven't had any contamination in that process. So that is another reason why we don't do multiple use boxes at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely a key consideration. No, good point. And Michael here has asked a question around if there are any projections going forward. So around any projections for the next 12 months or 3 years or 5 years. What I will say on this is just with regards to CSF offers and offer documents, generally the line from the regulator is that projections need a reasonable basis to do so. Now, of course, you can see that the guys have been able to really scale this business very, very quickly. And that probably isn't enough for ASIC to then determine that that's a reasonable basis, purely, even though they've got a very good track record in a short period of time, but the regulator might look at that as a very short period of time upon which to base those potential projections off of. So what I think, there won't be any projections in the offer document as such. It will be historical financial information that you'll be able to see. But guys, I know that you'll have some internal targets around your subscribers. You mentioned the efficiency of the business and what that might be able to do to your balance sheet and enable to increase your margin as a business. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that and what this cash injection will mean for the business.
Yeah, so I think, like, without gonna answer the question without getting in trouble.
That's the kid. That's the real method.
Yeah. So our last complete month in June, we turned over $424,000, and that was with about 4,750 customers. 424 times 12 is approximately 5 million as a run rate. Absolutely bare bones. Currently we're sitting on nearly over 5,200 subscribers, and that's only 10 days up or 12 days after the fact. We're sitting here in a warehouse that has capacity for 4x. That is our ambition. That is why we're here. That is why we went and got a warehouse that has room to grow. That's absolutely our intention in the next sort of next 3 years, really. What beyond that is probably not as clear.
Yeah, but I think like a key point, and something we've always focused on, is, we started this business to make a positive impact on the Australian food system. Now we know that we need to run a sustainable business from a financial perspective to ensure that we deliver on that mission. If we're not running a sustainable business, we won't be able to deliver on that mission long term. So I think with the funds that we're going to get, that's going to be a key focus for us in the investment and the growth, is making sure that we balance those two objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And James here has asked a great question. How will you manage the future threat of cashed up supermarkets and grocers acknowledging the food waste problem? They have ugly food programs now. So if you're successful in changing the market take up, won't they challenge your pricing and undercut you using their delivery options? Are you locking in farmers with long-term contracts? Good question. Thanks for asking it.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Those are a very good question.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that is going to set us apart is our brand. It is a focus area for us, as we've spent a lot of time on our brand and also the customer experience. So we're here to build a leading brand in this space, to become thought leaders in this space. And that to us is going to be protection against what was asked in the question. In terms of our agreements with farmers, we are developing long-term agreements with them. They're approaching us, we're approaching them. In a lot of cases that we were having the first discussions with these farmers. So we've got really good relationships with them that we continue to build on every day, and thus we've got agreements to suit that.
Just to sort of add another thought to that, the food market, especially the produce market, is an absolute behemoth. I mean, the wastage in Australia is 7.6 million tons. That's like more zeros than I can personally comprehend. And ultimately, our objective at a really fundamental level is to address this problem. Where did this problem come from? I'm sure you can answer that. But so, it's a massive market, and we actually need the groundswell, not only from Aussies and consumers, but ultimately, Coles and Woolworths and the Aldis of this world move a lot of produce and have an incredible sway in determining what we eat and what we don't eat. So if they turn around and say, we're going to, do all ugly per se, that's a great result. That's an awesome achievement. That would mean Australia is no longer wasting food, and that's a huge win. There's no way I would be sad with that outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a really key point. And another question here, which is more on the product side, is how do you keep produce? How long do you keep produce in the warehouse prior to packaging?
As little as possible.
Yep, of course.
So, yeah. So for example, some of our line, actually a lot of it comes in the morning, and pretty much it's all gone that day. So we rotate produce really fast. Some of our harder lines, such as pumpkin and potato, we get in bigger lots, and that usually we get probably 3 deliveries a week. So we're rotating that maybe every 2 days on some of our harder lines.
Yeah, fantastic. Apologies to anybody who's seeing. I'm just typing some answers to some of the questions that are coming through. So if you have asked a question and it's just a little bit more admin focused, I've answered it there for you. Going back to the supermarkets themselves as well, John, thanks for your question around the Odd Bunch product. It's really interesting to see this actually in terms of your observation. John's basically stating, we'll always have the Odd Bunch product, and it is a price level that's not that different to the usual process. This suggests that the overheads eat up the cost difference. With expansion, you're not likely to meet that limitation as well.
I think, so the Odd Bunch and the other offering from Coles, they do price it similar. From what I've been told, the price that they return to the growers is not similar. But the way that they've built that offering, it struggles to really address the core issue, because you've got to buy usually over a kilo or more of that product, and it's, from an environmental stance, it's usually in net bags, plastic. It's separated so it can't contaminate the other product. So
it's also a very small offering relative to the entire sort of fruit and vegetable section as well. But I think I think as Josh sort of touched on earlier around the length of the supply chain, and I guess our relatively light on overheads, that I think that's where we'll sort of continue to have an advantage in delivering fresh produce.
Yeah, awesome. And effectively here, if I go down, I can see a question from Michael here. Any KPI sets, say yield from farm rec versus delivery output? Yeah,
so we have a few key KPIs in our business. The first one is cost of sourcing produce. So we manage that pretty closely. There's packing time in our business. So how long does it take to pack a box? There's delivery efficiency, and then DIFOT, which is the full overall measure of delivery in full on time. So they're some of the key KPIs that we focus.
Yeah, awesome. And as we come up, we've got 20 open questions. I know that we're coming up towards the end of the webinar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best to get through these questions and make sure that we've highlighted all the important ones that really cover topics that we haven't gone through in too much detail. But in case anybody does need to drop off at the exact time period, a question which I find is always very beneficial is asking people how they can get involved when your investment offer opens, and really what the next steps are of the process right now. So I'm happy to represent that as the guys are open with their expression of interest campaign right now. You're closing that on Monday, so effectively, really with where the campaign is at, anybody who wants early access to the investment offer, which is looking to open on Tuesday next week, they will need to sign up to an expression of interest. I'm sure that 90% of the people who are attending this webinar today will have already signed up and submitted their expression of interest to invest into the campaign. But effectively, it will be opening and there will be an exclusive 2-day window to be an early investor. And the only opportunity in which you can be one of those early investors is actually sign up to the expression of interest campaign itself. And then you can read an offer document. I did see a question about if there will be an IM. Through crowdsource funding, there is a structure whereby companies will put together an offer document. This is thoroughly reviewed by us and then signed off through our gatekeeper process. And effectively, that will be available for anyone to review and read when the investment offer opens next week. So now we've cleared that piece up. Just on your side, guys, we've got a few questions here, and I'll try and cover these off as quickly as we can. Have you thought about trying to target different markets? E.g., typical boxes have lots of veggies that kids won't eat. So a family box with more sort of boring and unconventional options, as well as the standard box. Lots of families I know don't buy boxes for this reason.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Something that we're always on the lookout for in terms of expanding our offering to make sure that it's meeting what's required.
Yeah, and I think there's some pretty key opportunities here without going into too much detail, but we're already visiting the doorsteps of thousands of customers every week. There's some pretty logical add-ons or sort of pantry staples that we think will go hand in hand with our box. The other one that we've slated is sort of office fruit boxes as well. Getting fruit into the hands of sort of office workers and people at work, keeping them healthy, giving them a banana. I know there was always a fight for the bananas and the right bananas in the bowls. It's definitely one, but there's a few there.
Absolutely. Sure. And James here has asked, what's the current demographic of your customer base? Do you see a particular group, and how do you intend to target other demographics?
Yeah, no, we definitely do. So predominantly our customer base is female. So that is a demographic, probably makes up 85%.
Yeah, 88.
Wow.
88, yeah, 88% of our customer base.
Right.
So that's our current focus market, and then as we grow and expand and develop our offering, we'll look at what's applicable to other target markets.
Yeah, fantastic. A question here from Wendy. So there will be consistent content products in the box with a recipe, like a meal plan. Does that mean that there's a possibility you're targeting different diet needs through your boxes, or is that not really what you're doing at the moment?
So at the moment, all our subscribers every week will get a recipe that's curated based on what's going to be in the box, in the standard box.
Nice.
Yeah, in terms of that, it's not a physical recipe. It's a recipe hosted on our website. Obviously, we don't want to be printing too much where possible. In terms of dietary at this point, they're primarily vegetarian recipes, naturally, with veggies. But there's always sort of really, really good hot tips on, you could add chicken to this as a side, or things like that can kind of bulk it up depending on what your needs are.
Yeah, I think it's so just to add to that, like currently with our packing, we allow our customers to exclude certain items. So for example, if you don't like onions or I mean, we get onions for fructose allergies. So, you know, our packers will exclude items from the box. Haven't currently explored the option of creating a curated box based on those allergies.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned around produce staying in the warehouse for 2 days, but this is actually a great time to answer this one. Is there, and if there is, or will you partner with non-for-profits to clear the produce if those 2 days are exceeded?
Yeah, so we definitely do, and as part of our business model and giving back, I mean, it's important for us to give back to the community as well as solve this issue. So we've partnered with Oz Harvest very recently, and we're going to donate 100,000 meals to them over the next 12 months. We will also donate any produce that we can't use that's come in, goes to them so that they can repurpose it in the creation of the meals.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think you probably already covered this one earlier, but just to make sure, what's the ratio of cost that's paid to growers?
It very so in terms of the cost that we put onto the growers, it does vary line to line, but it is cheaper than what premium products. Yeah, got it, great. And are there options for incentivizing referrals to increase subscribers?
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a little bit, actually. Absolutely, it's on the list.
Yeah, fantastic. David here is asked to explain crowdfunding. I guess I'll preface this by saying that equity crowdfunding is typically the term that's used in this space, just to explain the equity component, because when you're going down this route of crowdfunding, you are offering shares in the business. So effectively, as a business, Birchal itself holds an Australian financial services license to host crowdsourced funding offers, which means that we can host companies through this process and allow them to release equity to a number of investors, retail and wholesale investors, which are the classifications made up under the regime. And effectively, that means that everyday people can invest alongside wholesale investors and own shares in private businesses. The actual definition is proprietary limited or public unlisted companies, which is what the eligibility requirements require effectively. So that's really a means of the structure, but it means that every individual who's come on board and has seen Farmers Pick grow and contributed to it has an opportunity to own shares into the business itself. Happy to answer anything else in a bit more detail, David, if that didn't satisfy your question. But moving down through, you currently allow customers to customize what goes in their boxes. As your business grows, can you still support this at scale and at speed?
Yeah, I definitely think we can. I mean, we've moved into our new warehouse, and what we've seen is a reduction in our packing costs and an increase in our processing speed as we settle into this new warehouse. So as we grow, I think that is definitely something we'll be able to maintain, just given the current trends that we're seeing.
Absolutely. And there's a great question here around what your personal motivations are for starting this business and working in the sustainability space.
Yeah, do you want to go first on that? You should go. Yeah, so for me, I think I came out of the corporate world prior to this, and I just until Josh and I started talking about this issue, I had no idea that this was a problem, and the numbers just dumbfounded me. Like, the waste that goes on is astronomical. I just felt that there was something that we could do about it. It seemed so ridiculous that this product doesn't get eaten because it's aesthetically not up to the standards that have been set over the last decade. So that was a huge driver for me in terms of wanting to jump in, help solve this issue, and really support the men and women who grow our food, because that's not an easy job in itself.
That's a good point, actually. I think that's one thing that we've realised over the journey is just how hard farming is as a profession. It's isolated.
Yeah.
It's it's isolated. You're at the absolute mercy of Mother Nature, like we've seen in the last 12 months with, I think, 4 different floods, and probably some of the toughest growing conditions in 30 or 40 years. You throw in the geographical dispersed nature of Australia and trying to ship things thousands of kilometres away while keeping them fresh and crispy. It's it's thankless.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So really just trying to highlight the farmers and what they're doing and really just trying to make sure that this produce isn't wasted. It's a win-win model really for the farmers and the individuals who are getting that produce, as otherwise it really would be thrown away. Marco has asked a question around how much you're trying to raise and what percentage of the business you're going to give away in doing that. These details will be in the offer document to finalize, but guys, if you want to say a little bit about this, then absolutely go ahead now.
I think we're still just finalizing those numbers, so stay tuned on that, and we'll release that on Friday.
Yeah, fantastic. And you already talked a little bit about your brand here. So I know that this is tied into this question, but what is your marketing strategy to try and reach 4 times your target well, I think you mentioned 4xing your subscriber base right now. So what's your marketing strategy for that?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different sort of propositions that we have in market currently to customers. I think the first one is actually price. This one really hits home, and at the moment, with what we're seeing in terms of inflation and cost pressures and gas prices and interest rates and all this stuff on, we are consistently up to 30% cheaper than supermarkets, and it's dropped on your doorstep. And usually it is fresher. So I think that's sort of how we sort of lead in, and we see that lands quite well across all demographics. Everyone loves to save a few bucks. The other ones, obviously, creating that direct link to the hero, our heroes, the farmers, and creating that sort of connection and that link between farmers and consumers, and sort of educating on that food waste problem. And I think ultimately there's massive tailwinds that we've currently got around consumer awareness for food waste. I think everyone I speak to is, once they sort of understand the stats, the scale and the situation, they're usually
Guys, we've just lost you there.
Just ready to do something. So yeah.
It slowed down to about.
Back on?
I can hear you now, but your screen is still frozen.
Can you hear us?
Just about. I'm hoping that your screen will reflect what's actually going on your end.
Robin, sorry, can you hear us?
Yes. The screen is perfect. You may just want to reset your video. So if you just say stop video and then start your video again, that might help to refresh this one.
All right, we'll turn off the video.
I'm not too sure if anybody else is having any technical issues with hearing Josh and Josh, but okay. All right. Hi guys. There we are.
Hey.
Perfect. We're back. We did hear 90% of that, but we just lost you towards the end. If you do remember exactly word for word what you said, that would be fantastic to repeat.
I think I sort of wrapped up by talking about the sort of tailwinds that we're hearing with customers and Australians across the board, and their awareness for sort of food, or their growing awareness for food waste, and also wanting to do something tangible about it. So I think when customers land a box on their doorstep and they they feel part of that solution. And I think that's really the crux of sort of our next stage of growth, is harnessing that.
Absolutely. And there's a question here from Andy, which is amazing to say, like, I love the work. I'd love to work in this business as the issue of food waste is so close to my heart. When will you be advertising new roles in the business? Post cap raise?
Yeah, post cap raise, probably very shortly after.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think we did touch on this a little bit with regards to box customization, but Emma here has just asked a question if you'd be adding any staples to the boxes, such as eggs and milk. I'm sure you've considered this.
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely in the pipeline in the future.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we've actually built the tech infrastructure to be able to do it. We're just trying to nail the right time.
Yeah. Well, that is the end of the questions, and I want to just say thank you so much to everybody, especially for staying on through those technical difficulties at the beginning. Really appreciate all the questions. They were very insightful into the business and learning all about it. And guys, amazing work on building this business and growing it so quickly. We're really excited here at Birchal to be opening your investment offer next week. And to anybody who's here in attendance who hasn't submitted an EOI, but may just want to find out a little bit more, please feel free to reach out to us separately. I'll send over the recording to everybody as instructed, and they can always get back to us there. Guys, thank you so much for this time. Maybe you just want to say a few closing remarks to all the attendees here today.
Yeah, thanks, Robin, and yeah, thanks everyone for jumping on and persisting as well. We really look forward to welcoming you as shareholders of Farmers Pick, hopefully in the very near future.
Yeah, no, likewise. Thank you, everyone, and sorry about the technical difficulties. And yeah, thanks for sticking it through, and we hopefully will get to welcome you on as a shareholder in the near future.
So yeah, I guess we'll be sending out obviously the recording, but we'll also be sending out our sort of draft and final offer and releasing that next week on Tuesday. So we will, if you've expressed interest, we'll be in touch. If you haven't expressed interest, then we will be in touch, and we'll keep you in the loop.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to everybody who's attended here today. Yeah, we look forward to seeing you coming next week. So yeah, absolutely, have a good one, and we'll see you soon.
Right, cheers.
See ya.